Please welcome SingleStore VP Product Management, Dave Eiler.
Hey everybody, great to see you all today. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to answer a question from the gentleman founder over there. He asked, how do you all handle context? I'm glad you asked that question. So at SingleStore, we integrated vector search back in 2017. We saw way ahead on that one. We added approximate nearest neighbor search last year for super fast performance on that index. We've also integrated last year the Lucene library. That's the same library that powers Elastic and OpenSearch, and together you can do what we call hybrid search. And so with hybrid search, you can do a search in vector space, as well as sometimes, in addition to something being close in vector space, you're like, I actually wanted to have this keyword, and you can use Lucene for that. So we call that hybrid search, and that's how we serve context so fast to models. So I just wanted to answer that question. Today, what I'm going to talk about is some new features. And we're going to have a little fun today. At least for me, like, technology is fun. I think a lot of you here, that's why you're here. And having some fun in technology is it's not just great because it's fun. It gives you your competitive advantage, because if you're not having fun, how do you have the passion to put the hours in to really make something amazing that your customers are going to want to use? So that's a key part of it. So we're going to talk about some new features. I'm going to be joined with a couple of my colleagues. And because we're at the NASDAQ, I'm going to start out with a quote from the patron saint of investors, Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett says, "Only when the tide goes out do you discover who has been swimming naked." All right? It's a great quote. It's all about, like, being prepared, being smart. All right? So now, what I want you to do next is to visualize this in your head. All right, maybe that's not quite right. That's not quite right. Okay, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to have my own version of this quote. I'm going to make it my own. I'm going to say, "Only when the river rises do you discover who knows how to swim." Now, what do I mean by this? Let's say that you're trying to cross this river. And crossing the river in this analogy is launching your newest data and AI app. Something that I think probably most of you or all of you in here are trying to do. You need to cross this river. The depth of this river is the amount of data you have, the amount of usage you have. How much concurrency do you have? How many queries are going to be hitting the system at the same time? And you have to ask yourself, what am I going to use to cross this river? Now, you might say, I might start with an OLTP database. I'm building an app after all. I might grab some Postgres, some MySQL. This is something that everybody uses to prototype with and makes a ton of sense. Let's say in this analogy, that's that sedan right there. Or you might say, actually, like, this is a data app. Like, I got a lot of data. Like, oh, I'm going to use a tank. Like, I'm going to use like Databricks or Snowflake. It's big. It can handle any query. You might say that. Are you going to be able to cross the river with these? Well, of course, if the river is 2 inches deep, as it is in this slide right now, any database will work. If you don't have a lot of data and you don't have a lot of usage, it's easy. Anything will work. But what happens when the river rises? Oops, that OLTP database, the Postgres, doesn't handle analytics so well, doesn't handle scale so well. I mean, it's a row store. How are you going to do analytics in a row store? It doesn't make any sense. Can't scale out. It's single node. And that OLAP database, sure, they're the biggest queries ever. It can do any query, right? GBQ is called GBQ because it's Google BigQuery. It's not Google lots of queries. That's not what it's for, all right? They can't do high concurrency. So you're going to be stuck. You need something designed for this use case. You need a boat, something that is designed to cross this river, to handle lots of data and lots of concurrency at the same time. What I'm saying is, you have to set up your data and AI apps for success. That's what you have to do. And to make it even easier to do that, I'm going to tell you about 3 new features that we are launching today, and you're going to be able to request access to them today. The first one is, when you're building these data and AI apps, you really need AI-enriched data. You got the data in your database, and you need to use AI to make it better. Some examples of this, Raj talked about this earlier. You're doing customer support. You want to know what is the customer sentiment from these tickets. You're trying to detect real-time fraud. You've got some content maybe you want to use to personalize, to create recommendations. You want to do predictive maintenance on the machines in your factory. There's so many use cases for using AI to enrich your data. And because of that, we have introduced SingleStore AI and ML functions all built into SingleStore. You've got the models already there, ready to use, and you can do it from the SQL command line. From a SQL statement, you get the power of AI and the simplicity of SQL. Unbelievable. And in fact, the ML part of it, the ML functions, you can even train your own model if you want and put it in there. So that's AI functions and ML functions. Now, I think the best way to understand this is if I show you a demo. So let's look at what this looks like inside of the product. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to enable it because we want our admins to be able to control the experience. So we're going to give them the ability to turn it on. I can see, hey, what workspace group, what cluster am I attaching to, what model am I going to use? In this instance, we've got GPT. We're going to have Claude in there by default. We've got text embeddings. So I say, looks good. I'm going to give those functions to my admin. I turn it on. We deploy it all for you. Everything is done out of the box. The LLM is there, ready for you to access it. We set up all the compute you have to use it. And now I've got my list of functions. I can see all the different functions that are available to me. I can even click inside of it and kind of see what the parameters are. But let's run some. Let's give you a sense of what these functions really do so you can understand the power. I'm going to hop over to the query editor. The simplest example, AI complete. I've got a question. I want to pass it to the AI. I want to get an answer. I'm asking, what is SingleStore? And when I pass that to the AI and I run my very simple SQL query, it tells me SingleStore is a cloud-native database designed for fast analytics and transactional workloads. All right, boom. That's already baked into the LLM. It already knew the answer to it. It can do these questions. AI sentiment is another one. Suppose, for example, I've got a bunch of Amazon product reviews, and I want to know how are people feeling about those reviews? Are they positive or negative? So in this example, let's take a look at those reviews to get a sense of the data. So I'm gonna select a bunch of reviews. I see, okay, here's the columns, here's the text over on the right side. That's the text that I want to analyze. And I've also got a product ID, so let me filter by just one product ID. I want to know what people think about this particular product. So I'm gonna filter by that product ID. I'm gonna run the query, boom. And I can see the text coming through. I can see the sentiment on the right side. I've got my score. I see this is a great bottle. Give me a 0.9. Unbelievable, all right? So easy to set this up. AI sentiment built right out of the box. There's so many more functions I want to show you. Another great one is AI summarize. Sometimes in your data, you have huge blocks of text. This is just a few lines, but it could be thousands of lines long. So you want a summary of this? I want this whole thing summarized in 10 words. This whole blob of text. I run that query. Cat loves wellness food, health improved, prefers it to room temperature, boom. And again, that can be thousands of lines summarized into however many words I want the machine to do. AI classify is another one. This is a great feature. This goes back to the beginning of the ML days. I have, let's say, a customer support ticket. I want to know, is it about pricing or is it about support? So I pass in the text, and I've got in brackets below it, I say, look, this is either pricing or support. I want you to classify it. I want you to tell me what it is. So I'm going to run that query. And it's this is a pricing question. This person is talking about credit ratings and things. This is obviously about pricing. I'm going to route this to sales because that's who this should go to. AI extract, another example. Another huge blob of text. This time, I'm going to read this blob of text, and I'm going to have it answer a question. In this case, I want to know, is this customer at risk of churning? Based on this blob of text, tell me they're either high risk of churning or low. Those are the only two answers I want, and that's what the second parameter is. I tell it what I want from the answer. It's high. They're talking about how they're, I've called you so many times, I'm mad. So the AI automatically recognizes what this does. The last one, probably the easiest to explain, AI translates. I've got something in one language. I want to know another language. So here I have, I've got thank you. This is in English. Please, can you translate it to French for me? I run the query. Merci. It's just that easy. You can imagine all of the uses for powering your data and AI apps and doing localization on the fly. Unbelievable functionality. This is just a few of the features that are available inside of AI functions and ML functions as well, where you can train your own model. So you can see customer support intelligence. You're able to use AI classify and AI sentiment for that. Real-time fraud detection, you would use ML anomaly detect, ML classify for that, and on and on. You've got these functions that solve these different use cases. So with that, I want to hand it off to my colleague Micah Bhakti, who leads our Helios product, and he's going to tell you about the next feature, which is going to help you experiment on your data.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. So I wanted to start off with talking about customer applications. Many of you are customers and are already using SingleStore. Many of you may be new to SingleStore. SingleStore powers data and AI applications for our customers. And those applications generate a huge amount of data. And that production data is extremely valuable. Raj talked on that a little bit earlier. That data, once you start generating it from a SaaS application or from an operational analytics application, parts of the organization want to use that data. Maybe your network planning team wants to understand the growth in capacity so that they can forecast. Maybe product managers like us want to understand customer adoption of features and how well that's going. Or your marketing team wants to understand the pipeline that's coming from ad campaigns through to the product adoption. So there's a couple ways you can do this. The first one is probably not a good solution. Your engineers say, just give me access to the prod data, I'll query it, I'll get my results. And obviously most of us aren't going to allow that. But I think the current solution that a lot of us do use is to route data across a multitude of different systems. And that results in super complex ETL, delays in getting access to the data, and ultimately not being able to get the real-time insights that you want to get from that production data. There's an old quote that data is oil, and I actually think today it's more like data is energy. So if we think about our production applications and that production data, that's like the power plant within our organization. And all of our different teams, whether it's marketing or product or engineering or operations, they're using that data in different ways in order to power their use cases, get better insights on the business, and to be able to grow the business and acquire more customers. But the current data infrastructure often looks like the power infrastructure in a developing city. It's complex power lines, things are routed all over. If a pipeline goes down, a team calls you, they don't have access to the data, they can't do their job, and the business suffers as a result of it. So what we wanted to announce today is zero copy attach. We think there's a better way to route data between multiple applications without creating data silos, without duplicating data, and without having to do complex management around it. So whether you're running a SaaS application, or you're implementing sentiment analysis, or doing operational analytics internally, or maybe you're introducing a new agentic app as part of your application in order to drive revenue from your customers, zero copy attach can allow you to do that. It benefits from the core engine that we have with SingleStore. SingleStore was designed from scratch. A lot of other database companies have taken an off-the-shelf database and they built a service around it, or they built add-ons to it. SingleStore was written from the ground up in order to deliver fast inserts, low latency, and handle high concurrency. And that's what's allowed us to build the zero copy attach. If we hadn't created the engine from scratch, we wouldn't be able to manage this across different workloads and different databases that you have within your organization. And we've done this in a way that gives you a couple of key benefits. So you get write isolation between the different workloads. If you've got a SaaS application that's writing to the database, and you've got operational analytics that's reading from it, you have full isolation and dedicated caching on each of those workloads, so that maybe you're writing to recent data, but you want to see a month ago for your batch analytics. Those are completely independent per deployment of SingleStore. And they can scale independently. Just because you have 100,000 users on your customer-facing application doesn't mean you need 1,000 vCPUs in order to run your internal jobs. So zero copy attach allows you to scale the compute completely independently. I want to show you a demo of how this works. So in my SingleStore account, I've created a cluster to power my primary application. My primary application has a lot of users. I've been very successful at growing it, and so I've got an S64. So a lot of compute and memory resources. And I've created a new cluster for my agentic application that I'm trying. But as I'm just introducing this in my application, I don't need a lot of compute for that. So I'm going to deploy that on an S2. This is something that previously wasn't possible in SingleStore. You couldn't create a small cluster and attach it to a database that was coming from a large cluster because it just wouldn't be able to handle the workload. But now with zero copy attach, we've got complete independence between those two clusters. So with this demo, I want to show you how easy this is. This isn't a complex demo where I run through a lot of steps. I want to actually show you how simple it is to attach this database between these multiple workloads. So in the portal, I'm going to take a database from this app primary, and I'm going to connect it to this agentic application. So I'm going to attach database. I'm going to select my production DB01. I'll check that, and then I'll save it as a read-only connection to this new application. And you can see here, it applies that change immediately, and that database is now available for my agentic application. That's my same production data available on a much smaller cluster, which I can query directly with my agentic app. Let's go to Query Editor. I'll run a simple query just to show you the connection. And we can see here that production database 01 is connected to my two different clusters. I've got app primary, and I've got agentic app. And you can see that I'm read-write connected to the production system and then read-only to the agentic application. So super, super simple to connect up databases across multiple workloads. So the next step is, now you've got this database attached to multiple workloads. It could be 2, it could be 20, it could be 100. But you need to make changes to production. Again, you're faced with a couple choices. Maybe I copy terabytes of data from my production system to a dev test system. I can run some changes on that. I can analyze performance. But again, we think there's a better way to do that without moving data. We're introducing instant branching. This is a feature we have now in SingleStore. And database branching allows you to take any database running within the data platform, instantly branch it without copying any data. You can make changes to that. You can update shard keys. You can analyze the performance of an existing application with changes to the schema or a new application on that production data without affecting the primary branch. We think this provides developers a faster kind of time to insight, time to market, and an ability to make changes to their applications without taking the risk of modifying production directly. So with that, I want to turn it over to Thilik to talk a little bit more about how we can dig into the data to better understand the data that's within SingleStore.
Everyone. Thank you, Micah. Now let's talk about how we are going to change the way that you fundamentally interact with the data, right? We heard about our analyst. So I want to start with an analytics bottleneck. Building data in an application requires us to make faster, smarter decisions. But in today's reality, we have all been in a situation where you need some insight or some information, but then you end up writing complex SQL, asking your analytics team, or updating dashboards, et cetera, which works, but again, it's time-consuming, expensive, and more importantly, we end up spending time managing the process than actually getting the insights. And current analytic tools are like cable TV. Everybody, I think, here remembers the olden days of how it used to be, predefined channels, which is good. Again, if you have a predefined metrics or a dashboard that you probably have a question that you don't know of. But wouldn't it be nice to have a Netflix-like experience where you can browse the content of choice all by yourself? And that is what our analyst can help you do with your data. Let me introduce our analyst. Your AI-powered data analyst. Our analyst is a fully managed agentic multi-component AI system built natively on SingleStore. It helps business users to natively interact with the data in natural language without need of any technical skills. It is context-aware, which means our analyst knows about your schema. It understands the business context. It also learns from a past conversation. So every follow-up is more smarter, and every interaction gets useful for all your users as it's learning from the conversation. And more importantly, it evolves with the data. And being in the data platform space for a long time now, we understand how important it is for the business users to trust the data. And we have made sure that the feature is completely traceable, auditable, governed. So every query will be easily seen on how it is generated, how the data is presented to the business user, et cetera. And more importantly, it works on real-time data at SingleStore speed, which we're extremely proud of. Let's see our analyst in action. And I'm going to analyze a video game sales data set, and let's have some fun analyzing the data. So I'm going to use, this is a public data set, and I'm going to start with a very simple question. What is our growth in sales by region? And let the analyst do the work for us. So it started to think on understanding the question and doing the work. It gave us a really nice graph, but before looking at the graph, I want to look at the thought block. So it started by understanding the question and then finding the relevant schemas. As I said, again, it's context aware. So it found the relevant tables. It then wrote down a clear instruction of how it's going to generate the query, then generated the query finally, executed them on the SingleStore database, and then presented you the graph of what it was able to find. Now, we're going to ask more follow-ups, so let's look at the graph a little bit. So I noticed that the sales started to spike up rapidly from mid-90s and then decline from 2008. Now, I'm a little curious to understand why the sales declined. And let's see if our analysts can help us find it. So I want to get a little more complex now. I want to ask a really vague question. I don't want to specify any context or intent. I'm going to ask analysts to find why the sales declined from 2008. And let's see how our analyst is able to help us with that. Again, our analyst has the ability to write multiple queries to answer your single question. So it can write a bunch of queries, get response from each of the queries, understand them, summarize them, and then present the results to you. And let's look at the results here. So it started by validating the hypothesis or your question that the sales actually declined, right? And then it started by looking at several aspects of the data. Again, each of these are from different data sets. So it started by looking at released, platforms, publisher, genre, and region, and then finally made us the summary. So at a high level, it seems like the number of releases have declined starting 2008, and which caused the video game sales to decline. And it also made a very good analysis by correlating the initial graph that the decline is across pretty much all aspects of the data from platform, regions, or genre. And it also made a general hypothesis that it may be possible because the shift to mobile or digital gaming has caused the sales to go down, but not captured in the data. But again, it was able to correlate several aspects of the data, which is super nice. Imagine an actual analyst has to do this. They have to understand schema, write a bunch of queries, correlate, go back and forth with answering questions, and it'll take like days sometimes to get the results. And now I'm going to ask a little bit more complex question. Right? So this is good. No intent, no metrics asked. I asked a very generic question. It ran a bunch of queries and gave me the results. So let's say if I ask it about a value in the data set, does it actually know? So I want to ask a slightly complex question now on year-over-year sales growth for PlayStation. Now, the PlayStation is a value in my data set. I'm not specifying what the PlayStation mean in this context. Could be a game, could be a platform or a genre. Of course, we know what PlayStation is, but I'm not specifying anything to the analyst. And again, analyst has the capability to do multi-turn conversations. What I mean by that is it can take one big chunk of a question, break down into multiple smaller questions, write queries for it, understand it, and then resend back your original question. So let's look at the thought block. So it started by understanding that the PlayStation is a platform, probably general knowledge, but again, if it is specific to your business, it'll learn from the context that you've given to the analyst. And then it wrote a query, on-demand sampling, to find if PlayStation is in your data. So the on-demand sampling identified that the PlayStation is not probably in your data set, but it had other values, like PS1, PS2, etc. And then it used those samples to validate and see if the answer is right, and then finally wrote the query for our intent, which is year-over-year growth. And yeah, here it looked at the previous sales, did a window lag function, find the previous year sales, did a percentage, and then calculated the growth, and then presented the insights in a very nice form of graph. Now, let's talk about the context layer behind our analyst, right? That is powering our analyst to be smart. Now, the context layer, we call it as a domain. Again, it resonates back to the use cases. You can create domains for several different aspects. Can be for product adoption, sales, finance, HR, etc. And then you can, once you get a domain, you can add the tables related to your domain, and then you can add more context to it. And you can add like the context to your domain in terms of like the tables that you added gives you the description. These are AI inferred descriptions, which helps data people to add on to it. They can review the description, edit to it, add to it. And again, for columns, the same way. In the context, you can add free-form text. It can be business logics, formulas, definitions, you name it, you can add as a context, and analysts will learn from it. And you can also add queries. So let's say you're interacting with the bot, you like a query, you want to add that query to the context. You can do that. Or maybe let's say you have a query with a very complex logic that you probably want to add to the bot, and you can still do it, and analysts will learn from it. And finally, access control, which is more important. And the business users that have access to the domain will be the only person who can use the domain, look at the context, or even query the data from your database. Yeah, so that completes the demo. Like the feature is gradually rolled out. Visit singlestore.com/AI and start requesting access. Would love to get you hands-on experience on it and give us more feedback. I'd also like to thank our AWS Bedrock team for being a great partner. And I'd like to call upon Dave on stage for another amazing feature.
Amazing, amazing. We're talking about embedding Aura Analyst. We have noticed that when we're talking to all of you about this feature, Aura Analyst, the thing that gets brought up almost invariably before we can even finish and get to this part is, hey, can I put that in my app? Can I allow my users to ask questions? Right? Raj talked before about how many of you use ChatGPT. Everybody raised their hand. How many of you pay for a little bit of AI? Maybe you got the premium ChatGPT version or the premium cloud version. Yeah, you know, people are kind of used to the idea of paying for AI, and we think your users are going to pay to talk to Aura Analyst within your app, to answer those extra questions that they have that have been going to your support teams, to your feature teams, or everybody that's asking you to answer these questions. So let me get a show of hands. Who thinks they might want to embed Aura Analyst in their app? A lot of hands. I see a lot of hands. Oh, Premal Shah, co-founder of 6 Sense. You want to come up and talk about it?
Thanks, Dave.
Unbelievable. I can't believe we had the foresight to mic you up and put your slides in the deck. In case you want to discuss it, go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So I'm Premal. I'm one of the founders at 6 Sense. And what we do at 6 Sense, we are in the B2B sales and marketing space. We allow our customers to figure out who is interested in buying their product and look at, help increase the pipeline from the marketing side, and then help salespeople dig into the data. So, we've been in business for many years and have built the app. And, every time users want something new, we have to go and build an app, build a dashboard or build a UI or right. So here's an example. In the marketing term, if you're aware of MQLs and MQAs, we call our MQAs 6QAs because of 6 Sense. So this is a dashboard that a lot of our customers access, and they look at the data, and there are a lot of filters available. And after we deployed this, they're like, oh, but I want to dig in a little bit more, and I have this new question, and I have this other question, and okay, you have to keep building new features as a lot of you do based on customer feedback. And we are like, okay, there must be a better way to do this, right? Let users answer their own questions without us having to build new product or them having to, send a support ticket or like talk to the CSM or, talk to their sales engineer and like figure out what to do next. So as we started exploring different options, text to SQL is obviously one of the things out there which people are experimenting, and it takes a lot of work. You have to define your data models and then use like whatever you're using. And as we started talking to SingleStore team, they had the same idea that all their customers should be able to do text to SQL easily, and this is. Yeah, so this is how we would embed Aura Analyst into our app, and really excited to work with the team to get it going in a few weeks, and help our customers just like answer their own questions. So really excited, and kudos to the team to get this going. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Premal. So Aura Analyst is available today for you to try. Go to singlestore.com/AI to request access. This embedded product is on the roadmap. If you'd like to work with us on this alongside Premal and many of our other customers, we'd love to have you. We're looking for design partners. Now, what I've been saying here, the point that I've been trying to make this entire time is you have to set up your data and AI apps for success. That is what all of this is leading to, and SingleStore is the best platform for you to do this. So when you're building your data and AI apps, when you're crossing that river, remember the river I was talking about before, do you want to use a sedan or a tank, and do you want to end up with slow queries and cost overruns and angry users and problem scaling, or do you want to be singing to yourself, I'm on a boat? Everybody look at me, 'cause I'm sailing on a boat. I'm on a boat, it's good, hard work, That's the most of that song that I can play at this esteemed forum. But I will say my last thing, go to singlestore.com/AI, sign up, and you can request access to all these features. Thank you so much.